Hi, I'm Brian Garabay, and welcome to the latest edition of Telit Cinterion's webinar series. Today, we're here to discuss supply chain management, and an effective supply chain requires visibility in the deployment from production to delivery. And the value proposition of IoT-enabled asset tracking devices really speaks for itself. They ensure things like location, dot on a map, which equates to on-time deliveries, regulatory compliances within the industry, mitigating waste and even theft. And ultimately, it's about reducing revenue losses. So we're here to talk about the benefits of IoT products within the supply chain market. And I'm here today joined by Marco Argentin, who is the VP of Product Management at Telit Cinterion. So welcome, Marco.
Hi, everybody.
And we also have Derek Middleton, who's the Global Business Development at 7P Solutions. So thank you, Derek, for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys about this and gain your insights into the and how IoT plays a role within the market. So let me start, Derek, with you and just give me your thoughts on the digital transformation that you've seen within your particular industry, the supply chain market.
Yeah, thanks. So over the last 5 to 10 years, there's been a drastic change in supply chain and how companies and the various stakeholders within those businesses utilize the technology, not only to schedule shipments and track their location, but also in certain industries monitoring the environmental factors. We're seeing more companies utilize hardware from a hardwired to a wireless GPS system embedded in the freight or connected directly to the asset. GPS devices provide critical information in real time to coordinate the on-time pickup and deliveries, detect theft or the pilferage of shipments en route. With our 7P devices, companies utilize various probes and other sensors that also send that important real-time environmental data like temperature and humidity, impact. All that information is critical to the integrity of a shipment and the product. So what we're seeing is what was once a nice to have is becoming a must have in today's supply chain.
No, I agree with that. Marco, what do you think about Telit's view on the supply chain industry and how IoT plays a role?
Well, I have to say that I agree with Derek. The industry in the last 10 years had a tremendous change and evolution. So also from a product management side, when developing the roadmap of our portfolio, I have to take into account the customer needs, and I can definitely confirm that there is an increase number of applications, in particular in the supply chain ecosystem and vertical. And in general, let me say track and trace is one of the most frequent use cases among our customer base. So really, there is a growing trend of this kind of application, but also there are other factors that are instrumental to this growth, in my opinion. I mean, we are living unprecedented times in terms of first the pandemic, now an uncertain situation at global level. So really a need for, as you said at the beginning, by the way, a need for more visibility for all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. And so IoT is really the technology that can provide this visibility for the devices at the edge and bringing the information to the cloud and providing this to the end user. And just to mention an example that someone might have already have heard about from Telit Cinterion during the pandemic, we were really helping, for example, the supply chain of the vaccines all around the globe, because our technology was equipped in boxes for this specific use case that was not happening any time before, right? So this is just one example where a product that was initially conceived for a specific purpose can be modified or fine-tuned for a better usage in the supply chain industry.
Oh, that's a good point. I think back to when some of those medicines, whatever, were needed to be super cooled, even
Exactly.
below zero temperature, things like that. So it really required specific visibility into those. Well, let me stick with you, Marco, and just talk about connectivity in general. Why is cellular the right solution? How are different technologies as a whole enabling the supply chain market, but specifically to cellular?
Well, I hope not to state the obvious if you ask me about cellular technology, but at
Right.
the end is the technology that is providing ubiquitous coverage, right? So when it comes to supply chain, we need to be able we have to enable our partners to transmit data all over the globe, and this is possible with the cellular technology. Also because within the cellular technology, there are different flavors of it, right? So depending on the use case of the final application, there could be different type of cellular technology that can be used. I mean, if we talk about low power devices, battery power, maybe CAT-M or narrowband IoT are the more suitable cellular technologies to be used, while there could be other applications still in the supply chain ecosystem that instead are requiring more throughput. And in that case, maybe LTE Cat1 or Cat1 bis is an option. So as Telit Cinterion, we are able to provide all of those different ingredients and help our partners to choose the best one depending on their need. But let me also say that uh, yeah, we are working in the wireless space, and it's not just about cellular technology. I mean, Derek was talking earlier about GPS, and I mean, when we talk about supply chain, the the need to geolocate
Yeah.
the devices and the goods in general is really key. So when we talk about supply chain from a technological perspective, there is a natural combination between the need to transmit data. So we can talk about cellular technology, of course, but also the need to geolocate the goods. And
Yep.
also in that case, there are different techniques. There could be the embedded GNSS capability of our cellular baseband, or there could be a dedicated GNSS device that we have in the portfolio, or a combo device that have both, or other techniques for location that can be implemented via software in our devices. So really, it's not just about cellular. Yes, that is
Yeah.
the fundamental pillar in this picture, but also, of course, the location technology that is part of our offering as well.
No, and I think another point to that is 2G technology. There's still plenty of 2G network out there. And if someone's maybe deploying a CAT-M narrowband module enabled product and see that there aren't CAT-M networks available within certain countries, there's typically 2G fallback. So there's still some,
Mhm. Yeah,
extended network coverage availability. It doesn't provide all
yeah,
the efficiencies that those networks provide. We all know 2G
definitely.
is the slowest, worst network to put something on, but hey, it's still there. So no, I
Yeah, yeah,
agree.
it's still there. In particular, in the region where I live, maybe we have 2G coverage instead of having 3G. That is
Yeah,
disappearing faster than 2G. Of
right.
course, if you are in North America, there is no 2G and no 3G anymore.
It's all
But
gone.
yes, we need to have all the possible combination of the technology to enable the ecosystem. And we didn't touch on 5G. That is also of course, a recurrent topic. Nowadays, 5G is more suitable for a higher end kind of use case, but with the enhanced red cap technology, for example, that will be available soon, then I foresee also an evolution of the type of devices that why not can enable even further the supply chain industry for sure.
Sure. Well, what about the challenges in cellular IoT? Explain Telit's vision, maybe the pieces that you're bringing together and why they're so important.
Well, the challenge is on top of what I just said. I mean, the ability to offer our partners a solution that is really tailored to the use case that they have to fulfill. Uh, from a pure technological perspective, maybe it's worth mentioning the let's say I was talking about coverage before. I
Hmm.
said ubiquitous, but probably I was not
Not the right word.
100% correct, because there
Well,
are also areas in the world where there is no signal, right? So
that's
it can
right.
be, I mean, supply chain means to transfer and transport devices and goods through oceans, for example, or
Yeah.
for some other reasons you are in a different area where you are not under a cellular coverage. So, for example, one of the challenges is to now look at other techniques. And for example, there is a new technology called NTN for non-terrestrial network that is something we are really looking at in order to uh, combine this capability into our next generation devices in parallel to the cellular technology, because in this way you have truly an ubiquitous coverage all around the world. And
Yeah.
uh, besides the pure technological aspects, let me also say that once we will have this offering in our portfolio, this is also complementary to our MVNO connectivity offering, right? So at the end, the same device will be able, with the same SIM card, to transmit data either through the cellular network or through a non-terrestrial network, right? And this is
Yeah.
really important because so far we discussed about the technology, but then there is also the connectivity part that is also important.
Yeah, and I think like Wi-Fi sniffing or other technologies that allow to get location, you can dip into a database of MAC addresses within Wi-Fi networks and be able to get more clarity on location technologies as well. Well, let me go back to you, Derek, because I wanted to ask you, as a provider of, this technology in the market, what do you find important when sourcing SIM technology, specifically SIMs, that are needed in the supply chain?
Yes, it's a challenge. Over the last decade, we've used a few different providers. It always boils down to a few primary factors. The first thing's always going to be coverage, right? Finding provider that can provide as much of that ubiquitous global coverage as possible. Anybody who knows anything understands that there are dead zones. There's spots and
Right.
locations in the world that you just don't have, especially in the supply chain. Marco already mentioned ocean. It's a huge challenge. So first and foremost is finding that global coverage. We've always been a global provider. The supply chain is global, so our solutions need to be um, as robust as possible in being able to communicate and connect in as many countries as possible. So having a SIM card that works seamlessly throughout the globe is really critical to what we do and the services that we provide to our clients. Another almost equally important item is the type of coverage that the customer can provide. A lot of people relate cell phones technology to GPS. It's something I hear all the time. It's my phone works, so why doesn't my GPS? Well,
Right.
GPS does use different types of technology, particularly as the technology is growing and expanding. As you guys have already mentioned, the 5G growth and Cat M1 connectivity, that is really critical. As we lose 2G and 3G, these older technologies, personally from a GPS perspective, I love 2G. I know it's slow, but we operate in a
It
small
worked.
data packet world.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
think about
it
your
worked
phone,
well.
right? You can send a text message, but you can't make a phone call or
Right.
watch your YouTube video. 2G is always there. It's consistent. So, the other thing is finding a provider that understands M2M type of business, machine to machine. we're not communicating, we're not streaming video generally. But what we found with Telit is that they understand the technology, they understand our space and what we require and need for our devices. So, besides their knowledge and understanding, they're actually going out and growing these capabilities, as Marco's already mentioned. And I think that's been the key to the success with partnering with Telit for our GPS solutions.
Fair enough. What about the best advice for logistics, like stakeholders, across the whole supply chain? What would be the best advice for those folks?
Uh, Not one device. There,
Fair enough.
we
Diversity.
always say a layered approach is really the key to success in not just GPS, but supply chain security as a whole. Simply taking a GPS and throwing it on a truck or a pallet or putting it in a box really doesn't solve the problem that these companies are facing. Uh, Understanding where that loss is occurring or why that loss is occurring is important. And you really need to have a complete understanding of what your business is doing, what that supply chain touches as far as the different aspects of the business. So a single system um, isn't really always the best, or single device, right? You want to find a system that utilizes a tried and trusted network of different solution providers that can throw in as many layers of protection as possible. There's a lot of GPS companies out in the market today. It is a growing field, the old dime a dozen type of situation. But when a company and a stakeholder is looking to implement GPS, they really need to find a provider that's equipped to work in this supply chain, somebody that understands what those challenges are, and kind of that can help um, implement not only GPS tracking, but different programs on recovery and quality management systems.
Mhm.
Those are all key pieces of the puzzle that you have to layer in, um, or you're not going to have a successful GPS
Well,
deployment
yeah,
within
yeah.
within your industry.
No, I agree with that. Marco, what are you seeing new embedded AI ML solutions coming through? What else at kind of the module layer?
Oh, wow. I was not expecting this question in the sense that you are touching, or better, on the contrary, I was expecting it. No, thinking twice, because you are touching on a trending topic, let me say. I mean, artificial intelligence and machine learning is definitely becoming a trending topic in the industry.
Right.
We already see different verticals where there could be interesting use of these new techniques. And for sure, I mean, I'm not personally involved already into a specific use case for the supply chain, but I'm
Yeah.
sure that there are a lot of new opportunities, because we were talking before about just the physical aspect of the technology, whether it
Right.
is the cellular connectivity or the GPS or GNSS technology, but we have to manage the data, right? We have to transform the data. So at the beginning, we were talking about the need for visibility for the stakeholders in the system. And this means that the need for transparency, automation, and insight and control of the overall, let's say, information and data in the ecosystem. So for sure, the adoption of these techniques can really boost um, the way to manage those data. From a technological perspective, this, in my opinion, would also require a new set of devices, in
Yeah.
the sense that we have to find the right trade-off between the compute capabilities, power consumption of the devices, and the
Yeah.
cost of the devices. So
Sure.
It's easy to say, okay, now we do a lot of algorithms for AI and ML, but then of
Right.
course we also have to be conscious about the fact that we have to provide a solution that has to be positioned at the right price for our partners and bring in the right value, right? So for
Yep.
sure, this is now opening a new trend in which we are deeply involved, looking into the latest and greatest ingredients of the technology to come up with something that can really make a difference also from this perspective.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And AI, I think um, uh, Bill Gates came out and said AI, we're in the age of AI, and made kind of a big statement about it. Like this is the beginning of something. And maybe on the consumer side of things, certainly in people's work lives and how call centers might change. And there are some aspects of the industries, of all industries, that are really going to change. How does it affect IoT as well? And you're right, it's all about, you can't price yourself out of the market by putting all this technology into a product that no one will buy because it's too expensive. So how do you make the right balance of getting the right solution at the right price point? So no, I
Yeah.
agree with that. And Derek, I'll finish with you on what new use cases do you see opening up in the supply chain market?
Yeah, so, the biggest thing that we're seeing besides the technology side is more of kind of an expansion or a twist on what was being done before. A lot of what we're seeing in the supply chain is the inclusion of more Bluetooth and RFID technology that isn't being used now as standalone or grabbing it and downloading the data later, but they're
Right.
connecting them to Bluetooth via Bluetooth or RFID to the real-time GPS. So what that's providing is more accurate carton-to-carton tracking
Mm,
and also temperature monitoring. But it limits that again. What we talked about just a moment ago is that cost to the end user, right? GPS devices cost more than a Bluetooth tag, but now taking that and being able to seamlessly integrate the Bluetooth tag into a GPS device and have that device
mm,
transmit that data to the end user in real time, it eliminates a lot of steps of recovering tags, but provides that visibility that they were losing previously when they were tracking through a RFID or Bluetooth enabled warehouse, and then it's going into the supply chain on trucks and in ocean vessels without that technology, and you had a big blind spot. So
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just the seamless kind of integration of technology coming together instead of having all these individual systems that companies are implementing individually. They can now have a single solution. The the other thing is API integration. So,
Mm,
API has been around for a long time, but
right.
it's becoming a must-have at this point because customers in the supply chain, as it grows, there's always a new system for a company to use, and being
Pull
able to take
this,
that,
pull that. Yep.
pull it
Right.
directly into what they're using, their TMS, their dispatch software.
Right.
It makes the end user and that's operating in that supply chain and just it increases their productivity, limits the number of platforms that their employees have to learn and utilize on a regular day-to-day basis.
Well, those are all good points, and it just speaks to the evolution of these products. As they started out early on in this industry, and how they've evolved today in these new technologies from a network perspective, Cat-M and narrowband and Cat-1 bis, and even 5G and RedCap, and all these new acronyms that we all need to learn. And these technologies are just going to follow those new network services, and hopefully we see some great advancements in the future. Well, thank you guys for joining. I appreciate your information, and having this discussion, and thank you for your time, because I think this is good discussion on just IoT in general, specifically to this supply chain industry, because it is so important. A pallet of produce is leaving Mexico and going somewhere in the world, and it's worth so much money. And how do you maintain that product before it gets delivered, and ensure that it's delivered in a way that is expected? So,
Yeah,
so no,
exactly.
thank you again for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for
Yep.
having us.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you.
appreciate it. All right, guys, take care. Thanks so much.
Have a good one.
Bye. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.